This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Amazon presents Jeff versus Taco Truck Salsa. Whether it's Verde, Roja, or the orange one. For Jeff, trying any salsa is like playing Russian roulette with a flamethrower. Luckily, Jeff saved with Amazon and stocked up on antacids, ginger tea, and milk. Habanero? More like habanero, yes. Save the everyday with Amazon.
Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Cats, this ad is for you. Has your human ever called you picky, persnickety, choosy? If so, Perfect Bistro Cat Food is for you. With ingredients like wild-caught tuna and pasture-raised lamb, tantalizing textures, and delectable flavors that meet even the most discerning cat standards. You're not picky, you're just perfectionists. Perfect Bistro, mealtime perfection for every cat. Have your human visit perfectbistro.com.
Hey everybody, it's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How are you this evening, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. This is going to be a fun little journey. Another, I guess we'd call him a failed prospect. And those are always fun to kind of dive into because it's the hope that kills you. And, you know, everyone kind of has the prospects that they're all in on, and this guy certainly had a few people in his corner like that, and you know, he gets to join the likes of Justin Mappletoft and Justin Papineau as guys who we all thought, hey, this guy could be a player, and now they're on this show, which is, you know, I when I was a bartender, the guy who owned our bar, there were, you know, pictures of deceased regulars like around the bar, and he would always say the last place you ever want to see your picture is at a bar. And I feel like the last place you ever want to see your name as a hyped up prospect is on Weird Islanders, the podcast. So it should be a fun one,
right? Because it means you definitely didn't hit, and you definitely didn't play a ton of games for the Islanders. So yeah, but like you said, you know, it's funny with prospects and like when we do episodes on sort of these failed prospects, like a lot of these prospects are like everybody's favorite guy. You know, everybody's got their pet guy that they're kind of into. And this was one of my guys that I was really into. We'll get into it throughout the course of the show, but I had high hopes for him. I was one of the people you were just talking about. Like I had a lot of hopes for him, and they never really materialized. And as of right now, they're still not being materialized elsewhere across the world, but we'll get into that with our great guest. You know her from Lighthouse Hockey, of course, and you know her from this show from way back in season 1. She's our friend Jenny Berman. Jenny, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. I'm really happy to be on tonight.
We're really happy to have you back again. When we last spoke, we talked about Thomas Vanek, and it's actually kind of funny because he came up just recently in two things. One podcast I was listening to, and then I noticed that the Sabres were having an alumni night, and Thomas Vanek was one of like the special guests of honor, you know, for that team, where obviously he scored most of his goals probably. And of course, this is coming soon. We're recording this soon after the Islanders alumni weekend, where they celebrated Pat LaFontaine, put him in the Islanders Hall of Fame. And it made me wonder, do we think that Thomas Vanek will ever appear at an Islanders alumni weekend or a special game like that? Can you see that happening?
Honestly, no. I think that guy wanted as far away from Long Island as possible after his, 50, 60 games?
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, part of a season, but yeah, as long I guess it's not happening in Brooklyn, so maybe that's the one thing that might bring him out because he definitely wanted no part of the Brooklyn experience. But I just thought it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, we're getting Jenny on again, and all this Thomas Vanek stuff is popping up. But apparently, he's a cool guy, according to Andrew Peters, his former teammate, who I was listening to on a podcast. But it was kind of funny. So, but anyway, it is funny how now I hear these names and they were kind of filtered through the Weird Islanders, the podcast lens. But you're back to talk about another guy who, again, I a lot to talk about. Played even less games than, or just about actually just slightly more games, I guess, than Vanek did, and has a very long history that we can get into. So, Jenny Berman, will you please reveal the subject of tonight's episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast?
Yeah, I'm here to talk about a former future 40 goal scorer for the Islanders, Kieffer Bellows.
The one and only Kieffer Bellows, Chief Keef, as he was briefly called, very briefly. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're already at the stage with Kieffer Bellows," but we are, because he didn't play that long ago. Reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, chats, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So sign up today, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. Okay, Jenny, we showed you the list. Your second time looking at the list. And Bellows popped up, and you were saying before that he's one of the few guys left that you were watched play. And again, it wasn't so long ago. But was there another reason why he jumped out at you from that big list that we had?
I first off, I think every Islanders fan, am fascinated by the various draft busts throughout the years. The guys that, like you said, we really root for, and everyone has sort of their pet guy. I can't say that Bellows was specifically my pet guy so much as, I think that the trend that we had of drafting guys we thought could score 40 goals on Tavares' wing, on Barzal's wing later, I think it's kind of an interesting history for the team, and the ways that those guys didn't work out is all kind of similar, which I think is kind of interesting. And also, when I briefly met him at one of the Meet the Team events that the Islanders do, he was super cool. He plays Pokémon on Nintendo Switch. So it's kind of reminds you that these guys are kind of just like us. Right. And I think that's pretty cool.
Was that at Adventureland? I hope it was. Even if it
no, this was at UBS, actually. This was days before he got waived, I think.
He was playing too much Pokemon.
I was just going to say, Barry Trotz got him playing too much Pokemon.
But really he I guess, what sticks out to me about him and UBS Arena is that when the Islanders opened UBS Arena with that zombie team with Richard Panik on the first line and all those guys, Bellows was like outside of Brock Nelson, was like their best forward, because it was his competition was Richard Panik. So he almost like caught. I almost was like, this guy is going to make it. He's going to catch a break here. That the team is so depleted. They don't know where Matt Barzal is. Josh Bailey's holed up in a hotel in Florida, and in some weird ways, he kind of had a lot of breaks go his way and he still couldn't grab a spot, which was tough, because as we keep saying, we all wanted him, as you want every draft pick, but we all wanted this particular player to hit because he had something that the Islanders were desperate for, as Jenny was saying. Like he looked like a potential running mate for Tavares or for Barzal or Brock Nelson or someone. He had the shot. He had the offensive instincts. He had the pedigree. He had already scored a big goal at like the World Junior Championship at one point. People were really excited about that. I think it was like an outdoor game too, so it had like a lot of eyeballs on it. And he felt like exactly what the Islanders needed in terms of skill set, but he was exactly what they didn't need for this particular team in terms of like his hockey head and his just approach to playing, I guess. And it's quite a shame, and he almost paved the way for Oliver Wahlstrom to in a way, because the two of them were really similar. And obviously Wally's career kind of has followed a similar trajectory, and it's I mean, I think 20 years from now we're just going to talk about the two of them as if they were one. Like the Justins, like Mappletoft and Papineau. So
right. Yeah, I don't know if we're 100% sure they're not the same person, actually, judging by how they they worked out for the Islanders. But before we talk about Kieffer, I feel it's important that we talk about Kieffer's dad, Brian, who played in the NHL. If you are of a certain vintage, aka old like me, I'm by far the oldest person on this podcast, maybe you saw Brian Bellows play. He's, I think, primarily still known for his time with the Minnesota North Stars. He was on that Capitals team in '98 that went to the finals. Kieffer apparently was born during that run, which to me is kind of mind-blowing because I watched that team play and remember that run pretty well. He was also on the '93 Canadiens, who won a Stanley Cup, which I did not know. Or maybe I knew and then completely forgot. And I was looking at Brian's numbers. Over 1,000 games played, over 1,000 points, 485 goals scored. And again, that cup. And again, this was coming just after the LaFontaine game. And I'm like, you know what? He's got numbers that are not all that far dissimilar from LaFontaine. Same with Pierre Turgeon. Turgeon has more goals, but kind of similar era, similar points, similar players. Those guys are both in the Hall of Fame, despite not having the Stanley Cup that Brian Bellows has. So I'm kind of wondering if Brian Bellows is why is Brian Bellows a Hall of Famer? And B, if he is, why is he not in the Hall of Fame? And C, that means that he probably pissed somebody off. So who did he piss off to not get in the Hall of Fame? Because I don't know, he seems to have the numbers to me, but you guys obviously are probably way too young to have seen Brian Bellows play, but have any of your dads or older brothers or whatever ever talked about Brian Bellows? Because he was a pretty darn good player from what I can remember from when I was watching him play.
I don't think I've ever heard anything about Brian Bellows before we drafted Kieffer, to be honest. I feel like that's kind of maybe the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame is he's a bit of a forgettable superstar.
I guess, yeah.
There was like a famous clip of like Brian Trottier like chirping him too way back when too, and
you're the best. Play on the ice. You're the fucking best, Bellows. You play on the ice like a superstar.
But I remember him as just a name, and then I don't know. I guess this would be more for you, Dan. But there was a famous SNL skit with Tracy Morgan, where he played Brian Fellows, who was who was like a Steve Irwin type kind of like satire. So I always thought that the name, I was like Brian. That's how it's kind of just like anytime I heard Brian Bellows, the hockey player, I think of Brian Fellows and vice versa. And it's like I was a little young for NHL 94 and 95 and all that kind of stuff. So like that era of the there are some names that like stick out, but I would be lying if I would say like I know much about those North Star teams or anything like that. But then as Jenny was alluding to, when Kieffer came around, it was you kind of would catch glimpses or little clips of Brian Bellows, and it's he I don't know, and Jenny just dispelled this myth for me by saying Kieffer was a nice guy and played Pokemon, which to me doesn't align with what I'm about to say, but I always felt like he carried the weight, or he carried himself like someone who was the son of an NHLer who was like trying to I don't know if it like weighed on him good or bad, but like you could just tell when he was on the ice that he was the son of an NHL player, good or bad. And I feel like it was always just something that I thought of in the back of my head watching him. And when he'd screw up, I'd be like, what a Nepo baby. Like, this guy doesn't deserve a shot here.
Yeah. How many times has Kieffer heard, I was there when your dad scored 55 goals for the North Stars. And that's like 8 years before I was born, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. He was a good player. He had a couple of 40 goal seasons. And if you don't know your Minnesota North Stars history, get on that. Also a key member in the early seasons of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and when they wore those original expansion uniforms. But in any event, that's all just window dressing for Kieffer, who, again, like Mike said, kind of carried himself like the son of an NHLer. Like, his dad sort of, I guess, walked into the room before he did in a way, which I guess is a little sad. And we won't know until Kieffer tells us how much that has meant to his career. But before he got drafted, was with a new U.S. National Development Program, 50 goals, 81 points in 62 games played. This guy did pretty much everything as a junior, and it ended up getting him drafted 19th overall by the Islanders in the 2016 draft.
Say now it's the New York Islanders. All the defensemen are gone.
Yeah.
They know that they're not losing Travis Hamonic. He's decided he's going to stay, so that helps. But they are losing some forwards, probably to free agency, including their goal-scoring winger Kyle Oposo. So you wonder if they're going to look up front.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the city of Buffalo for the warm hospitality. And I'm going to introduce Velu Kotonen, who will announce our pick.
New York Islanders select forward Kieffer Bellows.
Father played in the NHL, son drafted in the NHL. It's been a reoccurring theme, as that is the son of Brian Bellows, drafted 2nd overall way back when.
He's a lot like his dad, and is a big, thick guy who plays a little maybe heavier game than what his dad brought to the table, but there is no question. This guy's a shooter. He's a scorer. He wants the puck on his stick and off the stick. He's got an NHL-ready shot. Maybe the next best shot in this draft to Patrick Laine, and you're looking to add goal scoring. You guys talked about some, Oposo, goal scoring winger. This is a guy, I don't know if he can step in right away and do that job, but 2, maybe 3 years down the road, he's going to come in and be a sniper for the New York Islanders.
No less than Bob McKenzie said that Kieffer Bellows was the best pure goal scorer in the draft outside of Patrick Laine, which just goes to show you that even the great ones can miss every once in a while, like the Bob father here. Jenny, was the draft where you kind of got the impression that he was going to be the 40-goal scorer that the Islanders desperately needed?
Yeah, I think that, when someone like Bob McKenzie says he's one of the best pure goal scorers in the draft, and all you hear about, I think some of the other prospect writers around said that he's had like a really special shot too.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't just that he was great at scoring goals. It was something that was beyond the average NHLer's ability to score at that level. And so you start to get excited, right? Because you think, okay, well, maybe whatever flaws that he might have in his game that gets him picked 19th, playing with a really high caliber center, I mean, maybe that papers over a lot of those flaws. Maybe that's something that he just grows out of. They're drafting 18-year-olds. But you got to think that maybe there were also some red flags there that led to that 19th overall instead of, like Patrick Laine went 2nd. Why didn't Kieffer Bellows go 3rd?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
it's also a really strange draft now when you look back on it, especially from an Islanders lens. The 2016 draft, because how about this run of players? 19, 20, 21. Kieffer Bellows to the Islanders, 19. Dennis Cholowski, 20 to the Red Wings, and then Julien Gauthier, 21 to the Carolina Hurricanes. God. Yeah, pretty impressive stuff.
Future Weird Islanders list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this draft is chock full of them. And but I felt the same way. I remember when they kind of pitched Bellows as a goal scorer, pure goal scorer, heavy shot. That was like the word back then too. Oh, he's got a heavy shot. And he's not afraid to use it. He shoots from everywhere. And then thinking, oh man, like we must have got a steal at 20. And then now you look back on it, you're like, well, there was a reason why he slipped to 20. And he slipped to 20 in a draft that, boy, it was not too great. If you're slipping at 20 in this draft, Jesse Puljujarvi goes 4th. This was Matthews, Laine, Dubois, Puljujarvi, Olli, Juolevi went 6th or 5th, and like basically half of the top 10 are already out of the NHL or bit part players in the NHL at this point. And so for Bellows to fall this far in a draft where he was supposed to have one of the best weapons in it, really tells you perhaps the rest of his skills were not up to the speed of his shot. But as we keep saying, like the Islanders were sort of desperate for this kind of player. I don't think anyone was like, there was no controversy over this pick. I think everybody thought that this was the right guy for the Islanders to take. It was kind of Garth Snow's specialty was to go for guys with like high upside and maybe have a little risk to them, and especially at this part of the draft, the Josh Hosangs of the world, and even someone like Anthony Beauvillier, and they would kind of target these guys. And what's funny is that became like the Snow did it and was doing it for basically his entire era as a general manager. And then when Kyle Dubas started talking, preaching about this, when he took over the Leafs, it was, mind blowing, generational thinking, very progressive, and there might be books written about his draft philosophy. But when Snowy did it, everybody was like, yeah, Garth's nuts. Like, he's just, this is the Islanders circus in full effect. But yeah, I mean, I thought that this was the right fit, the right kind of philosophy for the pick, and it just didn't work out. It kind of became pretty evident pretty quickly that Bellows his path was going to take a little bit longer than we kind of all had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the perfect segue to his sort of, post drafting. I'm with you. Like, I was excited for the pick. Like, I don't really get excited that often for picks. I've said it a million times. We are not the prospect guys. We have no idea who any of these kids are until like the minute before the Islanders draft them. If it's like a reach or something and everybody's like, what are they doing? That's when I start to get worried. But otherwise, okay, fine, whatever. We'll see how it goes. But I was super excited about this. Probably because I remember Brian Bellows as a player, but also he just seemed to have all the tools, like you guys were saying, that the Islanders needed. And, again, U.S. National Development Program stats were good. That was a big run on those guys. Trent Frederick was also taken. Some guy named Adam Fox got taken in the third round that year by the Calgary Flames, if you remember that. Whatever happened to him, who knows? And, it seemed like the good pick, the right pick at the right time. And especially when you're drafting 19th, that was the year the Islanders had gone to the second round. So like, you're like, you don't expect much out of the draft, and to get a player of this caliber, or at least what we thought was this caliber at 19 is like, that sounds like a huge coup for Garth Snow and his crew. But like you said, the wheels start to come off a little bit. And Jenny, you were talking about red flags. And to me, there was a little bit of that happening after he got drafted. He started out at BU. His numbers were sort of pedestrian, 14 points in 34 games played, 7 goals, 7 assists. He did have those 2 goals in the World Junior tournament that year, but they came in the final game, and they were the only 2 goals he had all tournament.
Now McAvoy works in. McAvoy plays it across. Bellows shoots, scores. Kieffer Bellows has his second, and the United States is back within one.
The best in college hockey. This is delivered in big league fashion. This isn't on the tee. It's deep in his feet. He digs it out and beats Carter Hart.
39 seconds after the Joseph goal.
He didn't really play all that well until it mattered. And I remember thinking at the time, and I'm being totally honest here, I was like, okay, he's clutch. Like, that's a clutch thing, when he's like coming in when they really need him. Forget about the other, 6 games where he didn't score at all. This is good. But then he leaves BU and he goes to Portland Winterhawks of the WHL. A good program. We've heard of them before. They've had NHLers come out of it, and I didn't think much of it. So he spent 17-18 with Portland, 56 games, 41 goals, 74 points. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he wasn't comfortable at the NCAA at BU. He didn't have a great tournament, although he came up when the U.S. needed him. That's cool. He's having a great season at Portland. He goes back to the World Junior Championships that year, 2018, has a great tournament, 9 goals. USA wins bronze. Now he's back on track, and he's going to be a good player. Alas, that's not how it worked. At this point, he ends up joining the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. Yeah, they were still the Sound Tigers at this point. Before we get to like his Islanders call up, can you guys remember like sort of what you were thinking about him as a prospect at this time? Like, again, he's in Bridgeport now. We'll talk about his numbers there in a minute, but like, were you still on the sort of Bellows train at this point before he, after all the Portland, World Junior, BU, and now Bridgeport, like had the shine come off yet, or were you still kind of impressed and hopeful for the player that he was going to turn out to be what we all thought he would?
I think that, with the results at BU, and you're starting to see now that guys that don't perform in college get absolutely ripped.
Yeah.
Around draft time. I mean, look at Gavin McKenna right now. I don't know what he's doing points wise, but I do know that he went from presumed number 1 golden boy, no one can knock him off this podium, to maybe he goes 4th, maybe he goes 5th. all because, he's playing at Penn State and he's not doing well. If he stayed in the WHL, which I believe is where he was playing, he probably puts up like 150 points and everyone's like, yeah, that's the number one pick.
Sounds a little bit like our friend James Hagan's too.
Yeah. So
oh my God, what's wrong with him? Well, he's fine. Well, it's not good enough. Like, okay, sure.
But I think that's what it is, right? Is that these weren't exactly fine numbers for a guy you're expecting to be a 40-goal scorer. And that was on a really good BU team too. You had Clayton Keller was on that team. And I think that's who he was riding shotgun with too. So to have somebody who is a really good NHL center will become one at that point. And you're only putting up 7 goals and 14 points. You definitely start to get worried. But I think, you also look at it and you say, well, maybe college life just isn't for him. It's a big adjustment for normal 18-year-olds who are just going to class, let alone a guy who now has to play in college, has this first-round draft pick, title on him, and he's worried about that. So he goes to the WHL, and I think I am kind of back on the train like you were when he puts up 41 goals in 56 games.
Right.
Because then you're thinking, all right, you know what? It was college. Not everyone's cut out for it. He probably was worried about like he's failing his classes or something. And I mean, look, that happens.
Right.
But, he was also, I think probably closer to 20, I think, by the time he was in Portland. And I feel like at that age, a lot of these guys do just put up monster numbers, even if they're not a future NHLer. And so maybe there was a little bit of noise that was getting in along with everybody just being excited and wanting the best for Bellows.
Yeah. Yeah, there's probably something to that, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's not the first guy to go to college and be like, I don't know about this. And then, like you said, that Portland season was really good, but yeah, I don't know. Who knows what was going on with him at this time? And yeah, the overagers, that's another funny thing with the draft. Like, oh, don't draft these guys. And then the Leafs do. And it's like, wow, this is great. They're taking the overagers. And now a word from our sponsors. VintageIceHockey.com. Over 100 classic hockey logos on t-shirts, jerseys, hats, mugs, and more. Long Island Ducks, Albany Riverettes, Danbury Trashers, Kentucky Thoroughblades, and so many more. Plus a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch with our portion of the sales going directly to the Center for Dementia Research. These incredible items cannot be found in stores, so shop VintageIceHockey.com today. Relax, sit back, and enjoy wine from The Pinot Project. Rosé, Pinot Grigio, or a Pinot Noir that was named a Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. These wines are delicious, affordable, and available at area wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com, and please drink responsibly. Mike, where were you with Bellows, do you think, at this point? Again, he's just barely getting his feet wet in Bridgeport, and he's had this sort of like weird path there. But I mean, are you still like, this is still going to be the guy?
I don't know, because at this point, like, I'm starting to think of him as a trade chip more than anything, I guess. I believe like when we got towards 18-19, when he's start like after the BU thing, and it's a shame that Oliver Wahlstrom played so many games for the Islanders, because this would be a great dual episode with the way that their these careers have gone. Because if you remember, Wahlstrom too had that same sort of thing happen with him, and everyone was like, "Wow, that this guy's just not gonna." He's been bad at Boston College in his freshman year, and he's just not gonna click. And I think there were some issues with him, like not competing hard for the BC Eagles, and so he then went to he turned pro at the end of that year and went to Bridgeport, and was actually pretty good. But when you're hearing this kind of stuff from a guy that you wanted to put a lot of you wanted to put not a lot of pressure on, but you wanted him to carry a pretty significant role for the team in Bellows and step into that spot next to one of their centers. It just wasn't like I was like, this guy's never gonna make it, but I was like, maybe I need to temper my expectations. And speaking of overagers, that draft, the Islanders took Anatoly Golishev too. I think he was a little bit older than most normal picks in that draft when they took him out of Russia. Yeah, this was a great draft for the Islanders, actually. Otto Koivula also in this draft, but I just didn't. I wasn't as excited, basically, is what it was, and I never really got back to being excited. Like he played, he had that. I'm sure we'll talk about it now, like that stretch in Bridgeport when it looked like he was okay, like the player that the Islanders were gonna take, that thought they were taking, is done. The switch to the WHL inspired, he found his goal scoring touch. He goes to the AHL and is just on fire, but he just never put it together at the NHL level. I remember his NHL debut being very, I mean, most of them are, but very mundane, and I think a lot of people at that point were excited because the Islanders, if you remember that season, like they started really well. Players kept getting hurt. They couldn't score before the COVID shutdown, and they went like 12, 13 games in a row without scoring more than 2 goals. And this was the type of guy that this team desperately needed, and he just wasn't the answer. And it was probably too much to put on him at that point, but you'd expect that he was going to have play a more significant role than he actually did.
Yeah, this era, and I mean, we won't really know why, but I feel like everybody who came up, with the exception of like Devon Taves, had a bad debut. Like nobody looked good in their first couple of games in this era. Maybe the system was too hard. I don't know, but yeah, we'll get to his first games in the NHL. But you just alluded to it, and this was a thing that I actually kind of forgot about this when I started putting the notes together, and then when I was done, I went to sleep, and I was like, wait a minute, I completely forgot. He went completely nuts in Bridgeport before he got called up. This would have been in the back half of 2019, coming into 2020. He was on an incredible hot streak to the point where like people were like, banging their shoes on the table. Like, you got to call up Bellows. 12 goals and 13 points in 14 games. His numbers for that year at Bridgeport were, he had 22 goals, 9 assists in 52 games. So 31 points in 52 games. And I'm pretty sure that those 22 goals mostly came in this one stretch, which I remembered, I think it started in like November and carried through early part of January. And I remember thinking, okay, here it is. he's maybe it's luck. Maybe it's just, a hot streak, but maybe this is the guy. And he finally got called up. His first game, he got an assist. It was a game against Dallas at home. The second game was against the LA Kings, and it was an Islanders 5-3 win. And it was here that Kieffer Bellows had maybe his greatest moment in his NHL career. 2 goals in the game against Jonathan Quick. I remember this game. It was at Barclays Center. I was so excited. I felt this was it. Here he comes. It's finally happening. It took a long time to get here, but he's finally doing it.
Down Cole again, the goal scorer for the Islanders. Gets it down for Broussard. Broussard to the front. Beauvillier, backdoor, Bellows scores! Number 1 for Kieffer Bellows.
He fired it hard, and there's Broussard, little deflection. But look at the good peripheral vision, the hockey sense of Anthony Beauvillier, and oh boy, that's the start of hopefully a long career for Kieffer Bellows, and he just wires that one. So huge goal.
Both of these goals were sick. I just couldn't believe my eyes. This was one was from like a weird angle at one point, and I just couldn't believe that it was actually happening. The Kieffer Bellows experience was here, and we will all be witnesses. And I was a witness in that game, but that's about all we were witness for the rest of his career. Jenny, do you remember this game? Maybe you watched it. Maybe you were there. What about this game sticks out to you as for the Kieffer Bellows lore?
I do remember this game, and I had the same feeling, like, this guy's arrived.
Yeah, right.
Like, that was one of those games where you're like, okay, well, now this guy might be actually a star. Everyone was wrong. He had a weird thing. He's one of those guys who figures it out at the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And it really looked like that. There was something really special about the way that he played that game. I don't know what it was, but, like you said, he never found that level again. And I don't know if it was just something where it was with LA, the way that LA played worked out really well for him, and the way that he skates, the way that they defend. but it went from, wow, this guy could be really good, to, wait, is this it? Is this Kieffer Bellows?
Turns out it kind of was. Mike, what about you? You're always good for remembering these games in details. I for some reason, this game really stuck out to me. I guess, again, because I was kind of a huge Bellows believer at this point. But I just remembered immediately, like, oh, yeah, that game against LA where he had the 2 goals. Do you remember this game?
Yep. I remember the sharp angle goal really well.
Right.
And this season is such a weird one to look back on because of how it ended, and then the bubble, and the Islanders went into the shutdown. I think they had like 2 wins and out of like their last like 14
bad.
games. Like,
so
remember,
it was Pellick was hurt. It was all
Pellick was hurt, and like they just couldn't score or anything like that. And so they beat the Stars, they beat the Kings. And I think they go on like this little stretch of winning 4 of 5 with Bellows in the lineup, and you're like, okay, they're getting their stuff together. But of course, as always happens, they lose. They get shut out by Nashville, and that starts this insane stretch of I think it was like 2 wins and 13 losses with some OT losses in there, and the last game being in Vancouver before the shutdown. So, like, you kind of have to go through some like dark recesses in your mind to get to some of the glimpses of fun in the season, because it ends up being such a strange one. I mean, the Islanders started red hot that year too, like red hot, and just gave it all away in this insane run into the shutdown. But and I think that's the perfect way to describe Bellows. Was he was a moments player. Like, he had these little moments, and they were moments. They were not anything more than that. He scored a huge goal in Robin Lehner's return game for the Islanders, when he played for Vegas, and he came back and got that touching tribute. Bellows scored a goal that Lehner, I think, let in on purpose so the Islanders could get a point. But he scored, and he was really good that game.
Petrangelo to the net. That one kicked away by Sorokin. Parisi trying to shoot one off the wall for Bellows, and Lehner was able to recognize that quite quickly.
Yeah, real smart play by Lehner, but that was a good try by Parisi.
Bellows scores! Kieffer Bellows goes underneath Robin Lehner to tie it at 2.
Great shot. I mean, a great release by Bellows, and certainly that's what the Islanders are looking for from young Mr. Bellows. Is, we can live with some mistakes, but we need some goals, and comes up with a big goal, a good anticipation by Parise. Bellows right in the middle, and probably screen, and Robin Lehner a little mad at himself, figures he should have had that one. Looked like it went 5-hole, but you can see that it just ducks down, and Petrangelo went to block it.
Looked like it went underneath the leg of Petrangelo, stayed along the ice.
Yeah, exactly. And then Robin Lehner wasn't able to pick it up. So huge goal for the Islanders, a 5-on-5 goal, more importantly.
And I remember the Islanders afterwards talking him up and being like, this is what he needs to do. This is and Trotz, even, I'm just reading through this game story, kind of alluded to it. He's like, when he shows you, like, when he's engaged and he's working hard, he's good. And what we were waiting for from this guy was, to take these games when he'd show up, pop in a goal or two, or look on like a first line talent, to then build on that in the next game. And he just never really seemed to do it, which obviously led to his career pittering out the way it did.
Yeah, there was also, while we're talking about Kieffer Bellows moments, so if you go to Hockey Reference and you look up, the game logs, you'll see, especially for the first year, you'll see the 2 next to the game against LA, and then you'll see a whole bunch of zeros. There's not a whole lot there. He finished that little first call up with just 2 goals and 1 assist in 8 games. The next year, 2021, which, again, we talked about before, was sort of the COVID ravaged, opening of UBS Arena year, he managed just 3 goals, and 2 of them came in a game against the New Jersey Devils, which was another, kind of moments situation. It was on March 13th, 2021, 3-2 win over the Devils. And these are like, he was capable of stuff that would just make you go, holy shit. Like, this power move against the Devils defense, and just kind of slipped it in.
Scramble for the puck at center. Kieffer Bellows on the move again, trying to get a step on Bastian. He scored! A terrific power move by Bellows, and the Islanders take the lead.
Wow. What a tremendous individual effort by Kieffer Bellows. Absence of their captain gets into the lineup, and he's just scored 2 quick goals in the third period. Look how he makes that quick move. He pulls the puck past Bastian, keeps the feet moving, and cuts right to the front of the net.
Maybe that goal doesn't go in every single time, but like, why not keep trying it? I don't understand why these moments were so few and far between. But again, there's like a whole bunch of zeros and then a 2. And then he scored another goal again, also against the Devils, ironically, the next game. And then there's a whole bunch more zeros. And then if you go to his third season with the Islanders, which, we'll get to, this was his longest stretch with the Islanders. He played 45 games, 6 goals, 13 assists, 19 points. So he would have some scattered points here and there. He had a 2-point game against in Ottawa at one point. But again, just a whole bunch of zeros. Like, just he would go a long time without doing anything. And it was sort of like, I mean, again, I hate to bring up Oliver Wahlstrom again, but it was like, bro, what are you doing out there? Like, I don't really know what to tell you. And it was just like, you were waiting for the breakout. And then like every season he was with the Islanders had that one game that made you think, okay, this is it. This is the breakout. And then the breakout just never came. Jenny, these are just sort of scattered moments. We're going to get to Barry Trotz in a minute. I want to talk about him specifically when it comes to Bellows, but like, during this time period, again, we're talking about a 3-year period when he was an Islander. He would play 68 games total, 11 goals, 14 assists, 25 points, basically the most of everything he's ever had. Like, were there other times or like other kind of moments that made you think that this was the guy and then you would have invariably let down? Or were you early and sort of like, this guy's just never going to have it?
I mean, I think it's kind of both, right? Where it's, it's not going to happen, but at the same time, I mean, sometimes he would just absolutely rip the puck, and you'd be like, all right, I get why people thought that this guy was going to be an absolute sniper in the NHL. You'd see it come off his stick, and you'd be like, well, the Islanders don't have anyone else who can do that.
Right.
And it would get saved, but I mean, that happens. Even the best shooters in the NHL aren't getting no one's shooting 100. But you'd look at it and you'd be like, why can't this guy get this puck in? You'd be like, you have this amazing shot. You have obviously this talent that everybody saw, and yet it just wouldn't ever go in. It would always be weird goals and goals that were cool sometimes that would work for him. But it was never the shot that he was famous for, essentially, that ever worked. Yeah. And I guess, it's the skating, which was pretty obviously not at the same level as everybody else. And I never really know when scouts say, like, this guy doesn't work hard, this guy doesn't compete. It's like, this guy's going to the NHL. He works hard, he's competitive. But I think you kind of do see where guys like that, they get a little disengaged in the game. And I think that happened a lot with Bellows when things didn't go his way. And so you'd see, like, where you said, why doesn't he try this again? Why doesn't he keep trying this? It's because if it didn't work once, he'd kind of just stop. And I don't think that makes a prospect that's going to turn into a long-term NHLer. And I think, you got both ends of the experience there with Kieffer Bellows. This really talented guy where you could see that this was something that not every NHLer has, probably something that other NHLers would be jealous of with this shot. And then just a guy who could never really make that work.
Yeah, that's actually a great observation that, like, it was never the shot that scored the goal, right? Like, it was always, like, we talked about that weird angle goal against LA, that power move and just kind of slipped under the goalie against the Devils. Like, Kyle Connor makes his shot work, right? He's got a great shot and it works and he scores like 50 goals a year, but Kieffer Bellows supposedly had this great shot and it just never really went anywhere. Mike, what about you? Like, during the actual Bellows experience, like, were you kind of like, yeah, this guy just doesn't have it, or were you still holding on to belief?
I'm pretty sure, and we have a podcast, so people can tell me if I'm completely lying through my teeth here, but I feel like I remember just never being into it because of nothing like was more frustrating than watching these kind of players who you're like, flashes in the pan, then disappear. And when you'd hear coaches talk about it, when you started growing up and watching hockey, and being like, whether it's like Peter Laviolette or Steve Sterling or whoever, talk about like someone like Ole Kavasha, for instance, like where was he tonight, basically. And Bellows was that kind of player where he just would completely disappear. And when he would disappear, he wouldn't bring anything else to the table.
Right.
I feel like he would try to get physical, and you'd be like, you're decently big dude and strong, and he would like throw his body at someone and be like, yeah, more of that. And then he would it was almost as if he's like, what was I thinking? Like, why would I try to hit somebody? And he would just go invisible again. And he then became the type of guy that there was that, chicken or the egg debate where, he's not getting power play time. He's not getting enough minutes.
Right.
His line when he scored that first goal or those first two goals, he was centered by big game brass, Derek Brassard, and his the other wing, I believe, was Michael Dalcole. So play him with, you got to play him with better players or whatever. And then the other camp, the camp I kind of was in was he's got to earn it to show that he can play with those players. And I just never really thought he was. And it became such a thing online where it was like Trotz hates him, Lou hates him. Lou hates him because he didn't draft him. He was a snow holdover pick.
That's a good one.
Yeah, like there was all this stuff going on online, and these kind of prospects. It's so funny, man, how now we're living in these charmed times with Matthew Schaefer and hopefully Kashawn Aitchison and Cole Iserman and Victor Eklund and Danny Nelson and all these guys. And the Islanders went a pretty long time there where we had to almost project those kind of pedigrees onto players, no matter what. Once they got drafted by the team, especially if they were a first or second round pick, we had to kind of project those path onto them. And whether it be William Dufour or Matthew Maggio or whoever was the kind of hot middling prospect that on a team with a decent farm system wouldn't, they wouldn't get a second look. And I felt like we were just giving Bellows that kind of treatment. Like he's already proven to us that he's not the player that he's going to be. And if he can't be, God bless Michael Dalcole. Like Michael Dalcole was also supposed to be this player. He was Kieffer Bellows before Kieffer Bellows, who was Oliver Wahlstrom before Oliver Wahlstrom. And Michael Dalcole was supposed to be a pure goal scorer, great around the net, great hands. And he never found that. But Michael Dalcole stepped on the ice and he worked his bag off until the game was over, right? And he would hit, he would go to the front of the net. Michael Dalcole was not an NHL player, but he played so hard that he was endearing. Whereas Bellows, you're watching him, you're like, dude, if you like tried doing what Dalcole was doing, this might work out. Like you could become a decent third line checking, winger or something, right. And with good hands. And there's Kyle Clutterbuck was that, right? You can become that kind of player. You've got the skill set for it, but he just never seemed to want to do it. And I guess part of it is when you grow up and you're scoring goals for fun your entire life, it's pretty hard to then rewire your brain and your entire game to do that. So, but yeah, he never adapted and bought himself time by doing the other little things that, like when your coach is Barry Trotz, you got to do those things, and he just never did. And I think Islander fans then just started, getting at each other's throats about whose fault it was when it was probably Kieffer Bellows' fault.
Yeah, basically. It's funny, I didn't think about it until just now, but we talked earlier with our friend Pinholes Graham about his great documentary about the 06-07 Islanders, and we talked a lot about Mike Sillinger. It was on one of the bonus episodes over the Patreon. And, his thing was like Mike Sillinger in junior was like a huge scorer. He was like a scoring machine, but he had the almost misfortune of being drafted by Detroit just as they were coming to their Stanley Cup, era. And he wasn't going to play with Steve Yzerman or Sergei Fedorov or any of those guys. So he basically had to reinvent himself as a checking center. And he ended up playing 20 years in the NHL. And yeah, he played for 12 teams, but he still played in the NHL for 20 years, and Bellows just never seemed to kind of have that in him. Like Michael Dalcole, to a much lesser extent than Mike Sillinger, reinvented himself as a different kind of player. Bellows did not seem to be interested in reinventing anything. Like the goal stopped going in, and he was just like, well, I guess it's not going in today. So there were a lot of games where it just didn't go in. And as you can tell by his very paltry numbers with the Islanders.
Blowing ad budget on metrics that look great till the CFO sees them, that's bull spend. And marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
I remember telling my boss, it'll be good for the brand, when leads were slow. Yeah, it wasn't.
Cut the bull spend. LinkedIn lets you target by company, job title, and more. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
You may think you know McDonald's drinks, but you don't know them like this. From fruity refreshers like the Strawberry Watermelon Refresher and the Mango Pineapple Refresher with popping boba, to crafted sodas like the Sprite Berry Blast with berry-flavored Sprite topped with cold foam. Who knew ice-cold drinks could be so fire? 6 all-new drinks are here. Try them all, now at McDonald's. Refreshers contain caffeine.
This spring, Uber Eats has you covered. Whether you're celebrating mom, dad, or your favorite grad, not all of us are great planners, and with the Uber Eats gift hub, you don't have to be. Send flowers, perfume, champagne, or just their favorite meal straight to their door. Gifts arrive in as little as 25 minutes, and you can add a personalized video message for that additional so-not-last-minute touch. So this spring, get a leg up on gift giving with Uber Eats. Last-minute gifts that land every time. Must be 21 or older to purchase alcohol. Product availability varies per region. See app for details.
Hattaday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Hattaday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Hattaday. Hattaday, bring it on.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are... Gary the Snake. And your last name? The Snake.
Dream Team. Hit new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working at
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG.
I do want to stop here, though, and mention the guy who we've kind of talked about tangentially here, and that is Barry Trotz. I get the impression, I don't know about the online scuttlebutt at the time, but I certainly get the impression by doing research here that Barry Trotz was a fan of Kieffer Bellows. When the Islanders first put him on waivers, Bellows wasn't claimed, and I guess he went back to Bridgeport, or maybe just, he might have been like a paper transaction. Again, this was like pandemic era, so it's kind of hard to track. But he wasn't lost to the Islanders, and Trotz said at one point, "Thank God we still have Kieffer Bellows. Like, he's still here. Like, they didn't want to lose him because he was still a valuable piece at that point." And even after, like, he violated the AHL's performance enhancing substance policy, which I completely had forgotten about, Trotz was still like all in on keeping Bellows around and making him a useful piece. However, unfortunately, and we will hear more about Barry Trotz again very shortly, Bellows eventually would be lost on waivers. And it was on October 27th, 2022 that he was placed on waivers. And that was the end of the Islanders' Kieffer Bellows experience and experiment, and the beginning of the Philadelphia Flyers' Kieffer Bellows experiment, which if they ever do a Weird Flyers podcast, I'm sure he'll be on there. Had 3 goals in 27 games for the Flyers. That is it. No assists, 3 goals in 27 games. I don't remember any of them, but I remember that when he finally got picked up, I was like, okay, it's over. And he's either going to be a superstar or we're never going to hear from him again. And it turned out to be option B. Jenny, do you remember your feelings when the experiment finally ended and he was picked up on waivers? And maybe one of those feelings was, why would the Flyers pick this guy up on waivers?
So I had met him just a few days before at a Meet the Team event. And so I felt kind of bad about it, I mean, look, they're all nice guys. There's never going to be a player who at a Meet the Team event is going to look at you and be like, oh, I don't want to be here. This sucks. But, true. He was especially nice and personable, and you always root for the younger guys on the team. And, a guy who, as Mike said, we put in, a little too much stock in him, maybe.
Right.
So that's a guy who you're always rooting for. And then to see him, get claimed, you're like, Nobody wants to see that. I wanted him to work out with the Islanders. But I don't feel like it really was that we were going to be letting a future superstar walk away.
That team too, like I said earlier about the zombie team at UBS year one, the team that he got waived from, for him not to be able to crack that lineup or at least
seriously
like hang around. I mean, that was Nikita Soshnikov. That's the Islanders had Nikita Soshnikov, and they decided, well, we'll go see what this guy's got rather than Kieffer Bellows, who they, as we keep saying, they devoted a lot of time and resources to. That's 6 years into his NHL career since they drafted him, or his hockey career after the Islanders drafted him, and they decided that Ross Johnston and Nikita Soshnikov were worth keeping over Bellows. And honestly, Islanders probably made the right decision, at least with Johnston. Like Ross is still going, and he's obviously a valued member of the Ducks. That they picked him up off waivers on the island from the Islanders, but and he's found a role there. He's scored a couple goals. He tried to fight Matt Rempe, and but Rempe told him he was hurt, which
sure,
well, whatever you say, Matt. But so when you're not cracking this roster, this was a team that drove us off the wall mad. Like just, I mean, this team was so frustrating. It was Lane Lambert's first year, and they just didn't have it felt like for the Islanders to score a goal, they had to push a boulder up a hill. This was the team that Kieffer Bellows should have been tailor-made for, and he just couldn't do it. So his Islander line, actually, his like total stat line, that those 11 goals feel like that's more than I would have guessed. I would have guessed like 6 if you asked me how many goals did Kieffer Bellows score as an Islander.
Well, he had 6 of them in 3 games because he had 3 2-goal games.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, he goes to Philly, and I just, was anybody mad? I really don't think anybody was mad. I guess maybe like some people were mad. The context of, you got, once again, Nikita Soshnikov and Ross Johnston hanging around. Why are we waiving this guy instead? And maybe so that's what people were. I mean, this was like I said, a season where they needed somebody to step up. It wasn't going to be Kieffer Bellows. It wasn't going to be Oliver Wahlstrom. It certainly wasn't going to be Andy Andriov. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember people being that mad, and for people
not mad, just disappointed.
Yeah, But I feel like that's a little rare for this fan base when a prospect that is young and people wanted to see, and they still kind of treated him like what goes away is lost for nothing. People tend to get mad at the regime, and it felt like everyone at this point was just exhausted by this argument, and they moved on to, all right, let's just focus on the next Kieffer Bellows, which was Oliver Wahlstrom.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, mad is definitely not the right word. I mean, there's always that feeling of like you lose somebody for nothing, that he's going to become like a useful player someplace else. Like I remember, when all those times they put Josh Hosang on waivers, it was like, oh my God, he's going to go become a superstar. And like nobody ever picked him up. Like he just ended up getting sent back down to the minors. So there's always that a little bit, but after 3 years, I don't think anybody was all that mad that Kieffer wasn't here anymore. I should correct myself, by the way. It was only 2 2-goal games, not 3. So only 4 of those 11 career goals as an Islander came in 2 games. But
that season too, 22-23, as I keep saying, like he should have. If you're Kieffer Bellows, that you gotta be better than a lot of the players that end up. I mean, this was the Hudson Fasching coming out party. Look, I mean, I'm just going to read you some names of guys who got games that season. Cole Bardreau wearing number 54, William Dufour, Nikita Soshnikov, Arnaud Durando, Andy Andriov, Otto Koivula, Ross Johnston. I mean, on the blue line, we had Robin Salo, Sam Bolduc. I mean, this is the Atu Ratu for Bo Horvat year 2. But like, Kieffer Bellows should have been better than obviously some of the defensemen, but he should have been better than these guys, and he couldn't even clear that hurdle. He couldn't be more productive, more, I don't know what the word is. He couldn't bring the team forward better than some of the these guys. So he could have beat out Hudson Fasching. So
Yeah, and please, no Bolduc. I don't need to revisit that. Too much PTSD there. But yeah, only a few games for the Flyers and a few goals. Kind of bounces around the next few years. Ends up getting signed by the Hurricanes to a PTO in September of 2023. He gets released just a month later, and then I forget. I guess he plays in the minors that year. Where did he go? Yeah, he played. Oh, sorry, he played for the Toronto Marlies in 23. Yeah, 23-24. Played for the Marlies, had a good season for them, 49 points, 27 goals in 52 games. And again, you're thinking, oh, great, now he's going to be a star for the Leafs. Never gets a call up. Worse than being a star for the Flyers is being a star for the Leafs. But then, who comes to the rescue once more? It is Kieffer Bellows' old patron, Barry Trotz, who signs him to the Nashville Predators in July 3rd of 2024, signs a 1-year, 2-way contract. He ends up getting some playing time for the Preds. 19 games in 24-25, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. But that was about it. Spent most of the time in Milwaukee for the AHL. His numbers there weren't that great. And that was basically it for him on this continent, in the AHL or the NHL. Currently, he's playing with Brynäs in Sweden. As we record this, he's played 27 games. He's got 5 goals and 11 points. So not sure what that means or what's next for Kieffer Bellows. I had no idea he was playing in Sweden. But we talk a lot about like, oh, they just need to give this guy a chance. So they never got really a chance. Kieffer Bellows is the kind of guy who, not to sound like too much of a scold, and I doubt he's listening to this, but like, seems like he got an awful lot of chances. And as we've been saying, and as Mike has been saying in particular, didn't really do a whole lot with him. And had 68 games again for the Islanders, 11 goals, 14 assists, 25 points. That's a lot of games. And this was not a time period when they were fielding a ton of superstar talent on a lot of these lines. I mean, the line you were just talking about that he was on with Brassard and Del Cole, we've talked about those two guys on this show. So this was a very weird period in Islanders history, and he just sort of couldn't take control of his own destiny and make it work for him. So, Jenny, what do you think the enduring legacy of Kieffer Bellows' New York Islanders draft prospect is? Is there a legacy, or is he kind of put into a pile with guys like Wahlstrom, Del Cole, Ho-Sang, like these dudes that we wanted to love and just they didn't give us enough to love them, really?
Well, I think that's the legacy, right? Is the Islanders had this real habit of taking guys with, I think positively you can look at it as a lot of upside but some serious flaws, and more negatively you can look at it as guys that couldn't skate in this modern NHL that probably weren't really great picks. And I think that, skating isn't necessarily unfixable, so I can kind of see where the team was going with it.
Right.
But I don't think that the Islanders, when these guys were picked, and under Garth Snow, where there was dysfunction in the organization, and even under Lou, that kind of continued a little bit in the minors just in terms of developing guys. I don't know that the Islanders are the best development organization if you're a winger who can't skate.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, if you're a defenseman on the Islanders, it seems to go pretty well for you. Even every emergency call-up we've had this season, they've fit in. Travis Mitchell didn't look completely out of place. Marshall Warren fit in. And I think that's been true for years and years, for as long as I've been watching the team at least. The defensemen fit in. These forwards that can't skate, they fall pretty flat. And I think that, the Islanders have probably learned a little bit. I think that the profile of player that we've been taking, for the most part, has been a little bit different. Maybe more to what the team can do, more of what the scouting department thinks that then the development team can do a little more with. I don't know what the disconnect was, if there even was one to begin with, but I think that we've learned as watching the NHL and watching these guys, and the team's hopefully learned a little bit that it's a skating league now, and you need guys who can skate, and that heavy shot doesn't mean much if you can't skate the puck into the zone.
Yeah, that pretty much describes the Kieffer Bellows experience. I didn't think he was a bad skater, but you're right. This was around that time period of like the league sort of changing to a more skating league, and it didn't. He just didn't have it the way you're supposed to have it, especially now. I mean, just a couple of years later, it's totally changed, and like the Islanders are a much faster team, even though, they're not a fast team, but they are much faster than they were just a few years ago. Mike, what about you? I mean, I didn't ask you at the beginning, but after all this talk about Kieffer Bellows, when you hear that name, like, what do you think? Just guy with all the hype in the world that just didn't live up to it, or something else?
Yeah, it's more that this team was this era was so, they were thick as thieves. It was a brotherhood, and we dubbed them the uncles for a reason. And Kieffer Bellows just never was able to find his way into that core group, or into the group at all, and he just wasn't a fit. That's all it was, I think. And I guess Jenny said the word legacy, and I think with a team like the Islanders, you're always going to have a legacy. No matter who you are, you put on. I mean, hell, we've talked about Don Cutts multiple times. Don Cutts never even played for the Islanders, but he showed up to an alumni night and has a legacy, right? Like we have a way of paying homage to basically anybody who puts the jersey on or gets drafted. And Pius Shooter never played for the Islanders. He got an episode of the show, and I think that a legacy doesn't mean it could be good or bad. And for Bellows, it's almost like he was just indifferent. Like he didn't really make an impact on the ice, but he made one off the ice in the way that I think a lot of people through the Kieffer Bellows experience now will change the way they look at these kind of players. And that the way that they'll kind of put their hopes on different prospects, because he not only did he not hit in terms of his bread and butter, which is goal scoring and that shot, but he couldn't find a way to contribute any other way towards the cause. And he never really, found his, he never really pushed this team forward, or he didn't push them back really either, but he just was one of us. He just became an Islander, and now he's not. And now he's in Sweden. And he picked up a suspension for PEDs along the way. And so, yeah, it was a strange, I guess, unfortunate career that has enough of a storytelling thread to it that he's much more interesting than his stat line would belie.
Yeah, he's just like us in that he likes hockey and he loves Pokemon. So there you go.
Exactly.
Even though I'm not a Pokemon player myself, there's a little bit after my time. I do have a question here, and it's funny. Well, actually, two questions. So one, here we're talking about a guy who was drafted super high, a guy we had a lot of hype for, didn't really live up to that hype. Simon Holmstrom is a guy who came in, and I kind of mentioned this before, like he was a bit of a reach. He was drafted at 23rd overall, so not that far off from the 19. And I remember at the time it was like, he's too young, he's too much of a project. What do they need from this guy? I mean, he's had seasons of 15 and 20 goals already on his resume, is shown to be a good penalty killer and a good running mate for JG Pageau in particular. Does his development compared to a guy like Bellows kind of make you appreciate Holmstrom a little bit more? Because it does for me. Like I'm a little bit like, you know what? We were kind of worried about this guy. And it turns out he's a pretty darn good player. I would almost rather this than a guy who comes in with all the pedigree in the world. Literally, his dad was a player, an all-star and a cup winner, and did all this stuff and had this name, and just it never worked out. I don't know. The more I think about it, as we've been talking, the more I've been thinking about, you know what, that Simon Holmstrom, he's pretty darn good compared to Kieffer Bellows, for example. Jenny, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, it's skating, right? I wouldn't even consider Holmstrom one of the best skaters I've ever seen.
Right.
But I think he's been able to do more with his game than just rely on a shot. He's had to probably improve a lot more than I think Bellows probably thought he had to walking in the door. I mean, I think he was viewed so much more as a project, and like you said, he was considered a reach at, was it 23 overall? But it also, I think, he came into this team and this organization kind of in an era of good feelings,
True.
2019, that was that surprise year, sweep the Penguins. I mean, nobody's really going to be looking at the draft. You're a real hockey sicko if you're looking at 23rd overall and having real expectations after this. And I mean, look, anybody who's listening to this podcast is a real hockey sicko, but
true.
Affectionately. But I think that, coming in, not needing to be a crucial part of the team, not necessarily filling a gap that anyone is looking for, almost gives you more room to become the player you're supposed to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Dan. Like, and the way that the two of them were talked about was so different.
Right.
Whereas, like, and it shows you just how the draft industrial complex is so diluted that, Bellows this is exactly the kind of player you want to take at 20 or 19, whatever he was taken. And you always want to take these kind of risks. And then Holmstrom, 3 picks later, was Lewis. Crazy. Like, what? This guy's not even on my board. And you look now, and Holmstrom, to me, as Jenny was saying, like, he became a very kind of Swiss Army knife type player, with some really intriguing skills. Knows he's smart, uses his reach. He's decent skater. He's I think more powerful than people realize. Obviously has great hands, a good shootout player, and Bellows just could never even. I mean, if Bellows could just add 2 of these like little kind of subtle tools to his game, he's probably still in the NHL because he had that God-given talent and the pedigree, but he couldn't figure out a way to do it. So as poor as the Islanders were in developing players like Bellows and I don't want to say Wahlstrom, because Wahlstrom, the injuries kind of skewed his career, but they did a great job with someone like Holmstrom of just kind of letting him grow into the player he was supposed to without kind of poking and prodding. So it's a good reminder about the draft, that when you're not picking first overall and taking Matthew Schaefer, like it's after that, and even us, we were like, they can't do it, but they got to do the other guy. It just shows you that that really it becomes such a crapshoot, and when people slam their fist on the table, and when they start doing that about a player you're taking 18th or 32nd, you should just get away from them.
True. This has been a very insightful conversation. I've loved this. This is great. This is exactly what I was looking for, and a player that I had a lot to talk about, and a guy we remember very, very well. Jenny, I hope you've had fun coming back. It's always great reading your recaps over at Lighthouse Hockey, and I hope you had a great second visit here to Weird Islanders podcast.
Yeah, it's been great. I always love being on here. I'd be happy to come on again if there's anyone left who I remember.
Please, by all means, you have the list. Let me know anytime. Standing invitation. You're free to come on anytime. You let me know, and we'll just pencil you in, and whenever we can slot you in, we will. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I do want to end this though with a trivia question. I guess it's a trivia question. We've been talking a lot about Oliver Wahlstrom. He's kind of come up. He was sort of like, the Bellows was sort of Wahlstrom before Wahlstrom. And I was like, maybe I should put him on the list. I completely forgot about him, but I can't, because he's played too many games. So don't look at Hockey Reference now. Don't look at any apps or anything. I'm going to have you both guess, how many games did Oliver Wahlstrom play for the New York Islanders? Obviously, he played some for the Bruins too, but just for the Islanders. Jenny, as our guest, you may go first. How many games did Oliver Wahlstrom play for the Islanders? And obviously, we'll play by Price is Right rules. Whoever's closest without going over will win.
Oh boy. I'm gonna say like 170. I think he got like almost over 2 full seasons in there.
Okay, good guess, Mike. How about you?
Yeah, I think he probably played more. Like he was, because he would play like 40 games and then something would happen, or he had that one season where he played a lot. Maybe like 210.
All right, actual retail price. 220 games for the Islanders. So, Mike, you win. Congratulations. But those were good guesses. I didn't even think he came even close to 100 games. I was like, oh, man, this is probably like another 68 games. But no, you're right. Yeah. 220 games, 36 goals, 35 assists, 71 points. So, yeah. So, Oliver Wahlstrom, sorry, you won't be getting an episode of Weird Islanders, a podcast. But I guess that's probably a good thing, right? I don't know if you necessarily want to be on this show, but very, very interesting. There you go. Become a member at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety for commercial-free episodes, bonus shows, written posts, chats, a whole bunch of stuff. Or you can just sign up for free to get our weekly release calendar, or you can try a 7-day free trial too. Our theme song is Knuckles by Bjorn Falk. Listen to more of Bjorn's music on Bandcamp and on Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day, especially Jenny's posts, for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety Podcast are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please leave us a review where you can. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, any final thoughts on Kieffer Bellows, Oliver Wahlstrom, Simon Holmstrom, or any of the other prospects we've talked about, good or bad?
No, not too much else to add. Just that I remember those good moments for Kieffer, and he's every franchise is going to have these kind of players that just do one or two things and then sail off into the good night. And Islander fans are uniquely qualified to pay to honor these guys, whereas other fan bases, especially the one across the river, would never even want to think twice about him. So he was an Islander. He certainly didn't live up to his hype, but he's one of us. And as we keep saying, he was nice at a fan event, and that unfortunately it wasn't at Adventureland, but nonetheless, that's another tick box ticked for Kieffer Bellows to move him up in my rankings a little bit.
Hey, that goes a long way. Being cool at a fan event, playing Pokemon, that kind of stuff is really cool. And too bad he played for the Islanders at a time when we never would have found that out. So thank you, Jenny, for telling us about that, because under Lou Lamoriello, we never would have known these things. So again, like I said, this has been very insightful. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another great guest and another weird Islander. Until then, keep the Islanders weird. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.